Ask that everyone present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Invoice and approval of the bills in the amount of $980,438.02. Unless there's any changes, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, I am not aware of any revisions to the agenda, and if there are none, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mrs. Rose. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is announcements. I do have a few announcements. Sunday, October 12th, Saturday, October 12th, this Saturday, from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m., our fire department is having their open house event at Station 1 on Crocker. For all of the event details, please visit the township website. 1 week later, Saturday, October 19th, from noon to 2 p.m., our Parks and Rec Committee is hosting the annual Hollapalooza. This year, it'll be inside Lobostal Elementary. For all of the event details, or to sign up, you can also visit the township website. The Township Library is always hosting amazing events. This week, you can find fun events like Tales with Tales, or Adult Craft Night, making floral pumpkin arrangements, and many more events. Please visit the Township Library website for all of their events. And as always, for more information on these, as well as all other township events, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit our website, www.harrisontownshipmi.gov, or follow us on Twitter or X at HarrisonTWPMI. Any other announcements?
Just a couple quick things. Obviously, we have the election coming up, so we're really election focused in the clerk's office. Starting with this Thursday, we'll be holding a voter registration at L'Anse Creuse High School for all the kids that go there. So every kid that's in social studies will be coming down to check if they're registered. So make sure your kid has their photo ID with them when they come and register. We'll be able to take care of them there.
Wait, I'm sorry, back up.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What age?
You can pre-register at 16. You can't vote until you're
that's
18,
cool. I'm
but
sorry, I
the
should've
Constitution
known.
allowed for pre-registration. So taking care of a large swath of kids. Most of them will be registered anyway because when they go through the driver's license process, they get registered anyway. So working through that.
I think that's a good, kind of like you're promoting it, like, hey, this is coming, you should do this.
Yep. And then on October 24th at noon at the Wheeler Community Center, myself and County Clerk Anthony Forlini are partnering with the Secretary of State to hold a voting town hall to have an opportunity for people to come and hear about preparations for the election. So that's noon to 3 at the Wheeler Community Center. And then 2 days later, on the 26th, we're starting early voting. So the early voting will be here in Rosso Hall Boardroom from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. October 26th through Sunday, November 3rd. And that's every day from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. So we will be here for you then. And then we have Election Day coming up on November the 5th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 o'clock p.m. At your regular precinct.
I also should announce that for those of you who find rip-roaring entertainment your thing, the annual State of the Township address is 1 week from this Friday, October 18th, at Geno Surf. So feel free, if you choose to sign up for that through the Macomb County Chamber. Any other announcements?
With the Hallapalooza trick-or-treating event, we are looking for 1 or 2 more high school students to come and help us out from about 10:30 to 2. So if anybody needs some community service hours, it's actually a very fun event. So contact me. My information is on the website.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree too. Some of those, some of the, getting those volunteer hours, it seems like sometimes the youngsters wait till the last minute, and,
Yep.
so if you can get that in, now, and that sounds like a pretty fun event.
It is, very much
Good.
so.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move forward on the agenda to item D1 regarding fire gear. Board members, we are requesting approval to purchase fire gear for probationary firefighter Devin Murray. Recently, we had a gear grant for 25 sets of gear that was approved, but this probationary firefighter was hired after and was not included in the 25 sets. The cost of this gear is $3,131.04, and we're recommending that we approve the purchase of fire gear for probationary firefighter Murray in the amount of $3,131.04.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support? Support. All right, got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Olgiati to purchase this gear. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda is item E1 from the Finance Department. Mr. Witt?
Yes, it's just the final billing from our audit for last year. The first part for $1,500 is the drain work that we have seen pretty much every year for the last, 5-6 years, where they assist us doing tying out the bonds from the Oakland-Macomb Interceptor District. But that amount is down significantly from where it's been as the finance director takes it on. This was more of hopefully just a final year handoff where there's a little bit just passing that knowledge on. And then the other portion of the bill for $3,500 was implementing a new accounting standard where they were really, what it was mainly focused on was software as a service products and how those tie in. It's something that when they bid the work was not included in the scope of work for the audit firm. So it was above and beyond that original scope. So moving forward, we hope to have it built, have the proposal when we come to the start of the year built into it, but that wasn't the case with this. So we're looking to approve $5,000 to close out the billing for the audit.
I think originally, or I shouldn't say originally, in the past, the costs associated with doing the interceptor work or the bonds was higher, and I think we incorporated that into new job responsibilities for the
Finance director.
right. And I think we agreed to allow for some expenses for 1 year in the contract, so this kind of reflects that. So we don't anticipate that $1,500 expense moving forward.
Correct. That was, in the past, like a $7,000, $8,000 expense to work through that drainage work.
Mhm. Any discussion, or is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the $5,000 invoice for, is it Raymond?
Raymond?
Yes.
For the invoice included.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, items F1 through F4 from the Water and Sewer Department. Board members, as you know, we instituted this new meter reading system. Approximately 8,000 new water meter reading devices have been installed. we have approximately 795 meters that do not have new meter reading devices installed. These old or failed meter reading devices create additional cost and labor, which increases the cost to all customers. We are going to begin a process where these customers will be notified multiple times in addition to the multiple times they've already been notified. If they do not comply per our current ordinances, we will shut off their water until they comply. There may be some customers who will not agree to allow the electronic sending devices to be installed. In order to accommodate these customers, a policy has been developed and is attached. I'm requesting that the board adopt the proposed manual water meter reading policy as presented. Kind of to summarize, we've seen, these are not smart meters, but we've seen other utilities utilize smart meters. I think DTE went through this process, and they're regulated at a state level. So they did come up with an alternative method if somebody doesn't want to use this system of taking readings and recording them. And so basically this policy lays out that process that we would adopt that would allow us to do manual readings. It's hard for us to know how many people are just busy and don't want to, haven't already, installed this. But we do believe that there will be some that will say, I refuse to allow this electronic device in my home, and, fears of, radio waves and, various things. So we want to make sure that we have an alternative method for these people to be able to have their meters read. So I recommend that we adopt the proposed manual water meter reading policy as presented. Discussion or a motion?
Make a motion to adopt the policy as presented.
All right. Is there support?
Support.
All right. It's easy for Adam and Larry because we met, with our water and sewer department, so the three of us are familiar with it. But is there any discussion, questions by any of the trustees?
I know that when we originally talked about installing these particular meters, it was pretty laid out in terms to the population, the people that were going to get these meter systems put in. So I don't think there should be any surprise. I did hear some kickback from people who felt that the bills were pretty high at the very beginning, or higher than they typically normally are. So maybe that's some of the reluctance for people to put these particular issues in. I know personally, I haven't really seen that with my particular meter itself, and I haven't really heard that complaint over the last probably 6-7 months or so.
Yeah.
So the $100 per billing cycle, that's per bill that you receive through the mail.
So so the answer is yes. So for the majority of our residents, they have a residential bill. So you could be in any number of, you could be in a condo, you could be in, a home. But for single-family homeowners, you get 4 bills a year. So for us to go through the process to, send you an email, receive an email, manual read, once a year go into your home and look at the meter, we felt like this would generally cover our costs. So it's $100. So if you were the person who said, I don't want this, but I'm willing to comply, it's going to cost you an extra $400 a year. Our previous system that's been in place for over 10 years was also a radio, wave, like a broadcast type system based system. We didn't really have this policy, but I feel like this is out of caution to give people an opportunity if they don't want this device in their home. It's a small percent of the population, but mirroring what other utilities have done, we're offering this if that's what they want.
And what is the deadline for compliance?
Well, at this point, so this is like really, we've got a number of agenda items. So the vast majority of residents have agreed, have had the new system installed. If they've been estimated, to your point, and I think this is important, if the meter reading device, electronic device that sends that message, has failed, and that's happened, and we couldn't buy new units, we estimated. So hypothetically, if Brian's been getting an estimated reading and we go into his home and install the new device and find out that, who knows, maybe he had a problem with a, plumbing fixture that failed, and we have to bill him for the amount that we didn't get, Brian's frustrated because he got this one bill that was bigger than expected. On the other hand, if Mrs. Rose was estimated and her bill is less than expected, you don't really hear from her saying, well, I hate this new system because my bill was,
Right.
$20, right?
Right,
So
right.
we only hear typically from the folks that had those higher charges. I forgot the question, I'm sorry.
So getting back to my question, what's the deadline for
Yeah.
compliance?
So the process of putting this in place is really gonna be, kind of like, we're hurting people. There's some people who are gonna say, and we're gonna talk about, some temporary help to provide some after-hours work. Some people are just busy, right? So we're gonna try to, our ordinances already allow us to shut off your water if you don't comply, if you don't give us access. We're gonna try to do everything we can to give the vast majority of people every opportunity they can to allow these new systems to be installed.
I think in an ideal world, the goal is next year, we're gonna have a bill for our old system to maintain it. I think the ideal world, we don't pay that.
Right.
And that's part of this policy, is we didn't do this 10, 14 years ago when we switched systems. And so now right now we're maintaining 3 different reading systems,
At least.
at least. And the goal is to get off of that, because there's a bunch of additional cost in maintaining that, because it's the same thing people have, maybe in the past it wasn't as easy to schedule time and that kind of stuff. So our goal is to get away from 3, 4 systems to be one system. And this policy gives the people a window, a path to comply without saying, I want to change how I do this.
So it isn't really like a hard, like, this is when we're gonna do this. It's kind of, we're down to a handful of people who, for whatever reason, you know what I mean? Like, we're giving you an alternative option here. We installed a system that, this isn't, what we're doing isn't, cutting edge. Everybody has these systems, right? So we give you all the opportunities we can. If you don't comply, at some point, we're gonna have to institute that.
The installation company was really good too. It was a super quick process. I think if you're getting any kickback if people aren't having it done, it's just because they just don't want to have it done, not because of a time issue as much as anything else, because it was a 15-minute in and out.
Yeah, it
Not only
was
for my business,
painless.
but for the house. I mean, and they were professional, they're
Yep.
clean, they're very polite. They
Mhm.
came and took care of business, you didn't even know they were there.
Right.
It was super easy.
Yep, and as we move forward, I think the process will continue to be easy. There are stragglers, right? That's the nature of this. And there will be some people who are just in opposition, which is why we developed this policy. So at this point, really, the motion before us, there's 3 others that kind of address, I'm sorry, 2 others that address this, but right now, we're just saying, can we adopt a policy where we give people an alternative? So,
Well, what I'm wondering is if the fee for the manual read shouldn't be progressive, that it should go up.
But it's
Because
not,
if we get into.
but it's not a penalty. This is important to say. If someone wants an alternative, so the short answer, right, like when DTE did this, DTE didn't say, we're gonna punish you because you don't want this. DTE is gonna say, we want to cover our costs, because clearly, if we had to go into every home, we would need a bunch more employees and it would become more expensive.
I guess my point is, and Mr. Witt alluded to, if we've got to pay this bill to maintain these other systems, who's paying that?
but so the systems will be shut off. That's
We'll
the
get rid of it.
That's the radio portion of the system. The meter
Right.
reading.
Oh, so there won't be any more maintenance?
Nope, you're gonna take a picture of your meter, we'll send you an email, if you don't, you're gonna get penalized, and once a year, we're gonna go in your home, and we're gonna physically look at the meter. If you don't allow us to do that, we shut you off. So, but if you said, listen, I don't want a radio device in my home, go ahead, once every 3 months, you go downstairs, you take a picture, you send us an email, we bill you for that. If you're truly someone who wants to just go along with the plan, once a year, we go in your home, the meter will be right, no penalty. Right? But we won't pay for an additional system because
Okay.
there's nothing involved in that. That's just paying a guy to go around to 10 homes every 3 months.
So the other question I have is there anything in this policy, I didn't see it, that if that lead tag is removed, or if it's been.
That's already in our ordinances.
So we will replace it.
If someone
There
tampers
is
with
no-
a meter, we already have the right, so we already have that. right?
So they have two choices. We can put this meter on, or we can go shut your water off, really is what it comes down to.
But if
We don't
you-
wanna shut
no,
anyone's water
no, you can have a plain old school odometer reading, no electronic device, it just clicks, right? That's just physically like driving I forget the word, Dave used to say it, but oscillating device. We go down and look at it, you take a picture 3 times a year, we look at it 1 time out of the year. That's what the reading is, nothing super low tech, so.
Just seems like a lot, emails, directing people to go,
That's
and
why
for
I-
$100, it doesn't seem that covers the cost for us to do that.
There's a balance between, so let's just say this. If this is what you want to do, you're gonna pay $400 a year to follow this policy. 90% of the people have already signed up, they've already had the new meter installed. The majority of people don't want this. But our experience of watching what happened, with bigger utilities was there was a need to give the customer an alternative. So if 5 people do this, and 20 times a year we have to receive and send an email, and 5 times a year we have to go into somebody's home and read their meter, when you consider the really a 7-figure budget that the water department has, it's not.
And
It's
is that
not
list,
gonna change.
is that a confidential list, or is that list?
Well, at this point, we don't know. It's 0. We don't know who wants
No,
this.
who doesn't?
Right.
Who
We
hasn't
don't-
had it changed?
It's not confidential, really. Everything is subject to FOIA.
Okay, all right.
But I'll go on record as to say that in order to understand what this process looks like, I've not had this meter installed yet in my home. In other words, I told the water and sewer department that I'm gonna be one of the holdouts, so that when someone calls me and says, well, they came in and they did this and they threatened that, like, I'm going through the same process. I have no problem with the system, but in order to understand, what it looks like, I'm willing to subject myself to these, rules, so that I know what the process looks like, so. So I'm one of the approximately 795 people.
So we know where,
We know
we
where
gotta
to.
find the 794.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, my existing system is still working, so I'm not getting estimated reads, so, but.
Understood.
Yep, so.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify. So for this service, number 5 says the fee for the manual reads will be $100 per billing cycle.
Mhm.
But then number 3 talks about a $100 penalty if you don't follow the rules and send us a reading.
Correct.
So that means the penalty could be as much as $800 per year if somebody does not comply.
Right.
Hold on, gotta separate. One's a fee,
One's a fee to use the service because it's manual.
the other is a penalty for failing to uphold your side of the bargain.
Understand, and that's what I'm saying. So.
No, I just wanna be clear,
No, so the whole thing is, basically, if I don't want to go on the new system, and if I fail to answer the email or to send the email on the date provided,
Mhm.
I will be charged $200 and you will estimate my bill.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, so let's, this is humans, this is what we do, we're
I
in public
get it, I
service.
just wanted to make sure.
There are people who say, you know what, I don't want to file, I don't want this device in my home, but I agree to follow the rules. It's gonna cost you $400. If you say, I'm just gonna flat out ignore you, I'll sign this paper, but I'm not gonna do anything, well, you're gonna get penalized. So not only will you get charged $100 for the fee, but you're gonna get penalized another $100 for ignoring the emails. I mean, there are a certain number of residents who do that. So that's $800 of
right.
revenue or penalty to that person just for failing to just be cool. for lack of a better word.
So is there going to be any kind of grace, or is the water
Again, we always have the right to shut off water.
No, I'm talking about, I was on vacation, I forgot to send it, you
Sure.
know, can you waive the
It
penalty?
happens all the
Does
time.
that have to come to the board, or does the water department have the right to waive that?
Yep, so, the short answer is, we have done those things. I don't think we want to get into a scenario where, if it's a one-off, right? Like, if somebody comes in and says, listen, like, hey, I paid my water a day late, and the people go back and look and say, hey, you know what, you've always paid on time and you had a good excuse. So, I don't anticipate that being a lot of board action. There's really, I guess for lack of a better word, two kinds of folks. Folks who are cool, folks who are not cool. If you're cool, we've worked with people. We've forgiven people for, oh, I sent it to the wrong email. I mistyped. Here's the email I typed and I mistyped the email in. Those are reasonable exceptions, if that answers your question.
Yep.
So in theory, can I ask?
No, and I'm sorry, and this is important. Number 7 is really important. We're going into something we don't know. So we can always go back and modify this policy, say, you know what, we didn't realize this, but there's this one issue that comes up all the time. Like if we go back far enough when we had water-driven sump pumps, we had a water-driven sump pump policy. As time went on, we found that there were times when people had other things that weren't water-driven sump pumps, so we modified that policy to a wider scope. The same thing applies here. We haven't even put this into place. As time goes on, we can always adjust it, right? So this is what we think we need, but we're probably not thinking of something. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask, in theory, could a resident get water for $800 a year? If they pay the penalty? They don't let you come in and read it, they don't let you do anything.
Eventually, we'll turn it off.
Well, yeah, no, eventually for non-compliance, you'd be.
My
turned off.
water bill was over $500.
You're like, I'll trade.
Yeah.
That's where my head went to.
No,
right?
because there's still an estimate.
Okay.
So if you said we have zero consumption for you forever, we have to estimate 20
Okay.
units.
Okay.
We're gonna say, it's a,
I thought
this
that's what
size
the
one.
answer was, but I
Yeah.
had to ask.
Yeah, we're not gonna, you would have to show and have a reason for us to believe that there's no one in the home for us to estimate 0 units.
Okay.
Right, so.
Duly-
And you still have your trash, you still have readiness to serve charge, so.
And the only other question I have, and I think I already know the answer, these fees and administrative fees and penalties, if we roll to tax, these would roll as well, is that correct?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, so this is still a part of your water bill, and rolling water bills to taxes
Okay.
is still the same, yep. So, might take us a little longer to collect, but
Okay.
right? And again, this is a policy, and what we're just talking about is for 1% of the population. But
Probably
we're-
less than that, but.
But we're trying to be fair, we're trying to give that alternative for the person who's not comfortable with the system, so. All right, any other discussion? We had quite a bit there. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Tominello to adopt the proposed manual water meter reading policy as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next, in order for us to institute the fees that we talked about in item F1, our ordinances require we adopt a resolution. Attached is a proposed resolution that will allow us to implement the charges per our adopted manual water meter reading policy. I recommend that we adopt this resolution. So if you didn't like the last item, but if you like the last item, feel free to move to adopt this resolution.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support? Support. All right, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati to adopt the resolution to modify the Harrison Township water service charges. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. Thank you. Approve temporary help in the water and sewer department. board members, we worked with a subcontractor to install approximately 8,000 new electronic sending unit devices on all of our water meters. We're down to less than 800 meters that need new sending units installed. So 800, 900, maybe I was off on that. Either way. Our current employees are able to install these devices, but in order to offer flexible hours and to avoid canceled appointments due to emergency duty, we would like to hire a temporary employee to install these devices. Mr. Pat Shy is a respected Harrison Township water and sewer retiree. Mr. Shy has agreed to help us finish these installations. I'm proposing that we authorize up to 600 hours at the current utility worker 1 10-year rate of $28.65 per hour. Mr. Shy is not only well qualified to do the installations, but he would also be able to enter the necessary data in our system to make the devices functional. Pat was, there's something in the water and sewer department, Mr. something, but he was definitely one of the fellows that was really good at going into homes, interacting with the residents, well received. So he knows the system, he knows the township. This is not unlike hiring a subcontractor, but hiring a subcontractor who's hyper qualified to do this work. So it's really not any more expensive when you break it down. But also someone that we're familiar with, we're comfortable with. We don't want to have a scenario where we say, hey, we'll be at your home at 10 a.m. We've got 2 guys on vacation or 1 guy on sick and 1 guy on vacation. We have a water main break and we don't show up at your home because we've got something more urgent. This would be someone who wouldn't count towards staffing for day-to-day work, and someone who we're definitely comfortable with. As well as your experience was with the in-home person, I'm way more comfortable with Mr. Shy as the in-home person. So I think this would help us kind of wrap this up and finish it out. And someone who's, he's a retiree. Hey, you need me to, maybe I'll come in on a Saturday, maybe I'll come in later, maybe I'll come in at noon and work till 6, that kind of a thing. We think we could,
They'll have the flexibility that the rest of the staff won't really have.
yeah, and that's super important. And I think it's important also to understand how fortunate we are to have the relationship with the men and women in this bargaining unit who are willing to agree to have a retiree come back and, do this work. We know it's temporary. We're not taking away work from someone else. Not everybody wants to come in and work till 6 o'clock at night, so.
I make a motion to approve to hire Mr. Pat Shy to install the water reading devices and authorize up to 600 hours at the current utility worker 1 10-year rate of $28.65 per hour.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Badkins. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next, item F4, regarding a hiring of a water and sewer utility worker. Board members, at the August 12th, 2024 regular board meeting, this board approved to advertise an interview for the utility worker position for the water and sewer department. The supervisor, clerk, treasurer, public services director, and water and sewer superintendent interviewed 6 candidates for the position. I think the question was asked, we probably had more than 6 applications. I don't know that for sure. But we narrowed it down to the 6 best applicants. And the recommendation is to hire Mr. Blake Rejewski. The starting salary is $49,318.41, which is $23.71 per hour, plus benefits, and it's subject to a physical, drug test, and 90-day probationary period. I recommend that we hire Mr. Blake Rejewski for the water and sewer utility worker 1 position. I think the biggest part of this is no matter what you do and say in an interview and what the person across from you says, until you put them in action, you just don't know.
And the 5 months he's going to be going through is the 5 months you want to send a probationary guy through.
Correct, because
Winter.
what we see is, do you understand? We talk about how you're like a first responder. you say I'm a firefighter, okay, I understand what that entails. But when you say I'm a utility worker, the reality is it's not much different. You've got to be prepared to answer the phone, to respond, and if you don't, it's not going to work out. So it's really, this fella really did a good job in the interview. We think he's the right fit. He's got a lot of experience for a young man, but the proof will be in that 5-month, 90 working day probationary period. But I recommend that this is the guy from the 6th that we thought was the best. Is there a motion?
I'm just looking at the application. On a CDLA with air brakes, does that give him the ability to be able to drive the Vector, or what type of equipment can he?
So it's interesting because CDLA, higher level, CDLB is a little bit lower level. The collective bargaining agreement says you have to get a CDLB. If you have a CDLA, we get to, we compensate, I think, 4 individuals, I'm going by memory, but a finite number of people get an additional pay. But for a young man to come in already with a CDLA qualification, that's thousands of dollars of education that we wouldn't have to pay for.
That's what popped out when I was looking at this application, because I know that we've talked about putting certain people through that training test.
Yeah, he doesn't automatically get additional compensation, but, I mean, for a young man,
Right.
you know,
Shows
with his
initiative.
age, you know, yeah, absolutely. Shows initiative, and he had the most operational experience of the folks that we interviewed. So, but again, what it comes down to is, does he answer his phone?
Right,
Does he, you know, does at 2 a.m., does he show up for a water main break? And if he does, we're gonna compensate you for it, but you gotta be willing to respond. Any other questions, discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make that motion to hire Mr. Blake Rajewski for the Water and Sewer Utility Worker 1 position, the starting salary of $49,318.41, plus benefits, subject to a physical, drug test, and 90-day probationary period.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, next on the agenda, item G1 from the clerk's office.
Yes, the clerk's office has received a request from an applicant, Ridgeview Hospitality LLC, to transfer ownership of a 2024 Class C with Sunday sales permit and catering permit from Sterling Bistro LLC which was previously located at Lakeside in Sterling Heights, to 28409 South River, or Botown Willie's. And so we're looking for the approval of that, all the necessary paperwork and approvals, except the certificate of occupancy at this point in time for the liquor license have been approved. In order to be able to just move this along quickly, we're looking for board approval pending the final certificate of occupancy from the building department. We didn't expect it to be a long process, otherwise we wouldn't have brought it forward. It's just a timing issue. We didn't want to make it.
So our liquor license handed out at a county level then, because we're
No.
going from city to city here?
No, so liquor licenses are apportioned based on census information to individual communities, but once they're apportioned, they can be brought in from anywhere and transferred in. So basically, it's
It's an asset.
yeah, the community
Sell.
the community sells them for. I mean, like when we sold ours, it was like $100. You know, we don't have any more, but once they're out, they can be worth. I mean, Dean could probably speak better than I can, but they're thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I think, I feel like one of the businesses in the township said they paid 40 grand. to
Oh, yeah,
get
easy,
one. Yeah.
easy.
And that was several years ago, right?
Yeah, typically, they go on census in terms of how many can be in the community, but just like Adam said, you can bring them in. When I used to do it, it used to be called a resort license, where you can get something from other municipalities within the state of Michigan and move them in along, as well as if the board and the Liquor Control Commission said it was okay to move that particular license in, so.
And
That's
there's club licenses, but a Class C, is that full
Full liquor.
beer,
Full
liquor,
everything.
everything? Yeah.
That's outdoor service too.
Yeah.
It's saying in there too, so obviously they're gonna put, which it sounds like they're gonna make an investment into the building itself, if they're gonna
Right,
be doing that.
You wouldn't
so.
do this if you weren't gonna be
Right.
coming back before planning commission and doing something else.
Exactly.
So it could be,
That'd be great.
yeah, it could be an investment.
Yeah.
But again, we're playing kind of a Like, is there a reason to block this kind of a role, right? Like, is that, well, no, this is horrible, that place is.
You go through, you do background checks, you go send them to planning commission, they go through that process as well, so.
But this is kind of more of administrative,
Yeah,
right? It's not really a decision.
It's ministerial, we don't really have a choice without some reason. to say
Without
no.
some solid reason to say there's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm-
And even then, we would be telling the Liquor Control Commission, and ultimately the choice is theirs. We could say, no, not in a million years, and Liquor Control Commission says,
Still
stuff
do it.
marbles, there they go.
Right, right. So, knowing all of that, I'm not going to read the recommended motion, but there is one in the board packet. Is there anyone willing to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right. We had some discussion. Is there any further discussion?
Well, just from I'm sure the planning commission considered this, but their parking lot is gravel and no other place that serves alcohol.
I wouldn't say no other, but to your
But in the
point.
township.
Yep.
That I can think of has a gravel parking lot that serves alcohol. So was that, does anybody know if that was part of the
That's-
consideration?
that's not-
But that would
that's
be
a-
a site plan issue.
Right.
If and when they came, so this is one of those things, if your home doesn't meet the current codes, I don't get to kick your door in and say you need to do this. But if you want to make changes to your home, I get the right to make you conform. So similarly, that place has the right to operate. If they said, well, we'd like to do X, Y, and Z to improve this property. So, another example, bumpers, when they first opened up, they had a gravel parking lot.
They don't anymore.
They did, it's a mighty nice parking lot, right? And I've helped to pay for it myself, but, the point is that once, we couldn't have denied them the right to have our liquor license. But if they said, well, we want to make changes to our site plan, we have the right then to say, okay, well, you got to make some changes to the property.
There's definitely
So-
certain safety things that we do address during that certificate of occupancy. If they had a cord dipped into the sink or something like that, we'd be like, nah, that doesn't work. So there's safety things that we catch.
Basic. But
you know,
yeah, right, like a gravel parking lot, we can't say no because you have a gravel parking lot.
Just no more than we could say, oh, the siding's required to be hardy board, not.
Right, yeah, and we need a nautical theme. But let's just say this, Mr. Badkins, the cost to acquire this liquor license and transfer it to this is no small cost, whatever that is. Even if they own it and they're using it, it's an asset that they could sell on the open market. For them to transfer a liquor license, there's a pretty reasonable likelihood that they're probably going to be making other investments into the property, and at that time, we have that right to say, we
Okay.
need, you need to make improvements to the property.
Okay.
So, any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, does this require a roll call?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Backen?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Verkast?
Yes.
Thank you, board.
Thank you. All right, and this is way down at the end here. Next on the agenda, item H1, regarding House Bills 5917 and 5918. Board members, much of our region was developed with combined sanitary and storm sewer systems. When we experience heavy wet weather events, these systems are overwhelmed and cannot handle all of the flow. For decades, the solution was to discharge the excess flow into the Great Lakes. Over the last few decades, both Macomb and Oakland counties, as well as several municipalities, have invested millions to separate these flows or detain and treat these flows. Recently, our Macomb County Public Works Commissioner, Candace Miller, has worked to significantly reduce these combined overflows in Macomb County. Oakland County has also made several improvements to the George W. Kuhn drain. However, there have not been any significant improvements for 20 years. Meanwhile, Oakland County continues to dump their overflows into the Red Run drain, which flows directly into and through Macomb County and into Lake St. Clair. The state of Michigan permits this pollution and has failed to even penalize Oakland County when they violate their permit. It is time that Oakland County practices the golden rule and invests in their infrastructure to reduce the pollution in our county and in our lake. Our state representative, Alicia St. Germain, and our former deputy supervisor, Joe Aragona, are sponsors of House Bills 5917 and 5918, which will help move this effort forward. The attached resolution is in support of these House bills, and I recommend the adoption of this resolution.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution supporting House Bill 5917 and 5918.
Is there support? Support. All right, got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Tominello. This is, we've talked about this numerous times. This is one of those things where unless we make noise, unless we bring attention to this issue, I don't know that it's going away. It's convenient for Oakland County to do this. It's inconvenient for them to make improvements. But history tells us that when Macomb County has made noise in the past, Oakland County has been forced by the state of Michigan to make improvements. The existing infrastructure they have is immense. I've seen news reports from Mr. Nash saying how it's the greatest system, and it is. They've done a great job, but it's been 20 years. It's time to take it to the next level. And I don't think anyone would agree to do this into any of the lakes in Oakland County, and I think it's time for us to ask them to make some investments to protect Lake St. Clair.
So haven't we heard Oakland County say that, well, the state permits this, so we're just doing what the state is allowing us to do, right? Dump it?
Yep.
So how are you saying then that we want to penalize Oakland County when they violate their permit?
So there is a permit. The permit says, here's what you can do. You're allowed to do
X
this,
amount, yeah.
right? When Oakland County fails to do what they're permitted to do, they should be penalized, right? If the permit says you need to operate your system this way, and Oakland County says, oh, we screwed up, it didn't work, okay, well, what are you going to do to fix it? What's the penalty for not doing? So we're going to only discharge this much sewage into your waterways. Oh, well, we failed. Well, if there's no penalty, what's the reason to do
Okay.
anything better,
Well,
right?
There was
Right.
a catastrophic event, so we had to dump more.
Right.
see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
things happen, but they shouldn't happen regularly, over and over,
Yeah.
without penalty.
Gotcha.
The other thing is, history tells us that the investment, and I watched, I wouldn't know Mr. Nash if I saw him, I don't have anything against the man personally.
I would.
But, well, but I'm saying, like, one-on-one, I mean, he's sitting in a chair, he's got a job to do. But history tells us that in the past, when we've been vocal, and we got attention at a state level, the state said, hey, listen, it's time for you guys to go to the next level. The amount of discharge and the amount of treatment and the amount of the concentration of flow used to be worse. The only reason it's better isn't because Oakland County said, hey, let's fix it. It's because the state of Michigan said, you are hereby required to fix it.
Okay, thank you.
If it's been 20 years and you haven't done anything, it's about time to make a little bit more of an investment. If we have a wet weather event, should Oakland County have the ability to release that so as to not cause property damage? Yes. But should you do it as frequently as you have? No, I think it's time to take it to the next level. We're saying this bill is going to require Oakland County to just take it to the next level. Just give us something. Zero is probably not attainable at this time, but doing nothing is irresponsible.
Well, not only that, but when we receive those discharge reports, and we see the millions of gallons of untreated.
Hundreds of
sewage,
millions of
Hundreds of
gallons.
millions, I'm just trying to be nice, but.
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions of gallons of untreated sewage, and there are no repercussions whatsoever.
And sometimes, the system, when we say untreated, it's important to understand. Typically, when the system works, it is treated. And I understand that, and that's a collective acknowledgement that we're doing, I don't want to say the minimum, it's not the best we can do, but we could do better, right?
But they put all kinds of language into those reports. I mean, you can pretty much read between the lines and see what's
Sure.
what's treated and what's untreated. It doesn't take a real rocket scientist. You don't have to have a
We are paying, look at your bill, look at your water bill, MCOC interceptor charges. We are paying the bill on bonds at a county level in Macomb County to make improvements to our system to minimize the impact to our environment. We're doing it. It's time Oakland County does it. That's the bottom line.
Where is this going? Who's getting this resolution?
We will forward it on to the reps specifically, and they, usually when those bills go in for a hearing, they can submit them as
Yeah.
in
The
favor.
key here is it's not, you know, I don't want to say it's not quality, it's quantity. It's like saying every municipality has said, yes. I used, to draft our resolution, I used the county, Macomb County's resolution. But bottom line, and don't misunderstand this. Are House Bills 5917 and 5918 going to move through? Depends on what happens in November, right? But the point is that if we don't continually beat the drum, make the noise, this isn't the first time we've talked about a resolution like this, but if we don't do our part to support the people, that we can't solve this. Harrison Township cannot solve this. This has to be solved at a state level. Oakland County has demonstrated to us they're not willing to voluntarily do this. And they historically haven't. But when the state has said, you better do this or else, they've made the investment. So we're doing our part to push that snowball a little further to hopefully result in some
I guess my
long-term
question
change.
was, is this gonna go to the Oakland County?
It'll go to everybody, everybody else, right?
I just didn't know where
Yeah.
it goes, what, if it's approved.
Yeah, it's more about the fact that at some higher level, someone can say, all of these communities have passed a resolution in support of this. Simply stated, does this board believe and feel that Oakland County should do more to reduce their CSOs? Right?
Yeah.
And if we do, and after that, it's like we do our little part to move it along, so. Any other discussion regarding this resolution? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda is public comment. We'll open up the floor for public comment. The public comment can be about any subject that you wish. We ask that you try to limit those comments to 5 minutes of length.
C. William Bardell, 27-year resident, clean-cut, do-gooder boy next door, clean up, fix up, people helping people, proud Blue Dog Democrat. Just want to thank everybody for passing the resolution, and also I just want everyone to please stay up to date on Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook, and the battle continues, and hopefully at some point we'll have a perfect lake, and we'll continue to fight and do all the necessary things that we need to do to improve our lake. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. Is there any board comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, Board.
This is gonna be bad here.
Yeah, I know.
I just got back from Thursday.
My-
My parents are in Venice.
My-